All right. Well, first off, I want to welcome all of you to the Udacity VR Nanodegree course. I will be your mentor for both groups, the VR Mobile 360 as well as the VR High Immersion Nanodegree. There are two separate groups, so I'll be streaming a live webinar for both groups right now. Without further ado, let's get started. So in this webinar, I'll be covering these things. Number one, who am I? We'll be covering Slack. We'll be covering weekly webinars, weekly Slack AMAs, one-on-one mentor calls, personalized learning plans. We'll take a look at the hardware you need and the software, some VR applications out today, and we'll take a look at the course content. I'll give you some personal tips and how you can succeed in this course. All right, well, who am I? My name is Ethan Su. I am a graduate of the Udacity VR Developer Nanodegree. And when I took the Nanodegree, there was actually just one course for it. Now there's like 3. And I graduated from the High Immersion Nanodegree. Some of my hobbies, besides creating VR applications, I also like to explore virtual reality. I also use VR to interact with others socially and meet other people. Besides VR, I also develop video games, and I also play badminton along the side. I play on a weekly basis. So what are my mentorship responsibilities? Well, I have several. First off, I'm here to guide and support your learning throughout the Nanodegree. I'm also here to provide personalized learning plans. This is all dependent on your schedule. And then, of course, I'll be here to provide technical assistance, especially when you have like troubleshooting issues inside of your projects. And my goal for this is to help you succeed and pass this course. I want you to succeed, pass all your projects, and be able to graduate. Okay. So what are the perks of a mentorship? Well, here I'll be listing an overview, and then I'll go over more in depth later on, detail. Well, first off, you have the weekly hour webinars, and these are the hours that are hosted weekly. And basically, these webinars are to help you review content that you learn inside of the Udacity course. Secondly, you have the benefit of weekly AMA sessions. I'll be explaining that later on. You have weekly one-on-one sessions, which you can schedule with me throughout the week. And finally, you get technical help from me, which I should be able to respond to within 12 hours. So inside of this Nanodegree, we are going to be using Slack as our base platform for communication. And inside of Slack, there are different channels. If you'd like, you can introduce yourself to the community. It's a great way for you to collaborate with others and find answers, post questions, We will be using the session channel inside of Slack. That's how we will be communicating. And that channel is composed of me, your mentor, as well as the other students taking that Nanodegree course. Yeah, I'll be posting live updates every now and then on Slack. So make sure you're checking that like at least daily, I think. Yeah, daily. So you know when the weekly AMA sessions are, as well as the weekly webinars, right? So let's go over the specific perks of mentorship. First, here we have the weekly webinar. Again, this is the webinar that's hosted once per week. This is actually going to be our first webinar. Yeah, and these webinars are used to reinforce your a review of course content, as well as cover like reference material that will help you understand concepts better. And where will this be held? This will be held online on YouTube Live, aired on Google Hangouts. And since today we are starting our first webinar, I think I'll go ahead and have a weekly webinar every Saturday, 10 a.m. PST Pacific time. So right at this time every week, I'll likely be holding a weekly webinar. But in case I change times, stay active on Slack so I can update you on that. So the second thing is weekly AMAs. AMA stands for Ask Me Anything, and this is basically like a weekly session that's held. It lasts for 30 minutes. It's basically like office hours in which you can ask questions to me inside of the session channel, and I can just provide instant answers to like any of your questions. Where is this held? This is held on the Slack session channel. When? I think I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. Through majority vote, I'll be leaving up a poll every week, and you guys can decide when you want the session to be held. And why? Yeah, to instantly answer any questions you may have. All right, the third perk is being able to have one-on-one virtual calls with me. So this is essentially a 30-minute meeting one-on-one with me and you, and this is going to be held on Zoom. So how are you going to schedule this with me? I'll be sharing a link to Calendly, and you will be scheduling like some kind of a time throughout the week, and we will be able to call each other during that time. And this can be used to review content. You can use it to make your personalized learning plan. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. During our first one-on-one, we're going to create your own study plan so that you have you're pretty set on how you want to approach the nano degree. And if you have any technical related queries, you can also ask that too. Yeah, okay. So in order to schedule these calls, there are two things I'd like you to do. The first one is to private message me on Slack, and I want you to mention um, the scheduled time you have in mind, as well as any questions you have in advance before the call. Keep in mind that I'll have an array of time sessions that will be available through my Calendly link, and so you would have to schedule these calls based on my schedule. So yeah, that moves on to the second thing, which is to schedule a session using my Calendly link. All right, and the final thing, this custom learning plans. So I'll be creating these personalized study plans for you and you only, to help you approach the nano degree in a way possible through your schedule. Okay, and yeah, that's the purpose, to create like a personalized schedule based on your time. And we will be using Google Drive for this. I'll be sharing a Google Sheets link that will keep track of your personal schedule. So just to show you guys how this is going to look like, I'll be sharing a link to each one of you individually that will consist of something that looks like this. And it will specify like the dates at which the dates at which you have a specific content focus and the project deadlines. So depending on your schedule, you may have it a bit differently, but generally you would have it at this arrangement. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and cover what exactly you need for this course. I got a question earlier about hardware requirements, and I'll be covering everything from hardware requirements to software requirements for each individual nanodegree. Okay, get started. So, as a base for both programs, both the VR Mobile 360 as well as the VR High Immersion, you are going to need several hardware requirements. The first one is a Google Cardboard, which I believe you should be receiving along with the nanodegree. You should have a VR ready smartphone, and then I'll be going more in depth about what this means. And finally, you should have a computer that's compatible with your smartphone. Okay. If you are an iPhone user, you should have an iPhone 5 or a later version in order to run the Google Cardboard. And you should have a computer running Mac OS 10.9.4 or higher. That is if you're an iPhone user. If you are an Android user, first you should have an Android phone comparable to Nexus 5, Galaxy S5, or later. And you should have a computer that either runs Mac OS 10.9.4 or higher, or you can have a computer running Windows 7, SP1 plus 8 or 10. And the reason for this is because the application that deploys VR to your mobile device. So in the case of an iPhone, you would need to download Xcode, which can only be downloadable on Mac OS. Or yes, if you're an Android user, you'll be able to download. You would have to download Android Studio, which is available not only through Mac OS but also through Windows. So that's the reason why, if you're an iPhone user, you have to have a Mac. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to deploy your VR application. So yeah, make sure you have those things. And let's move on. Here are the software requirements for the Nanodegree. First, we are going to be using Unity, the Unity game engine, to create our VR applications. And we want to make sure we have this downloaded as well as the mobile build support downloaded as well. So if you're an iPhone user, make sure you have the iOS build download files included along with the Unity game engine. Or if you're an Android user, make sure you have the Android downloadable files downloaded. The second one is Visual Studio. Visual Studio is going to be our IDE, integrated development environment for creating these VR applications. And we're going to be using Visual Studio alongside with Unity to create these VR apps. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, the software requirements will be to be able to use Xcode, which is an application for deploying to your iPhone. Or if you're using an Android, then you need to have Android Studio set up. Okay. And during our next one-on-one sessions that you schedule with me, I'm going to help you set up your Unity so you can focus on creating content. That's going to be our main focus. All right, let's look at the specialized requirements for each of these nanodegrees. There are actually different requirements. The first one, VR Mobile 360. The requirement that you need is that you need to have at least a 1-month subscription to Adobe Premiere Pro to make your 360 videos. And for VR High Immersion, you're gonna need to have a VR ready PC. So generally, this is going to be like a computer that runs a Windows operating system with Intel 5 or greater and a high-end graphics card. And I'll be posting more details on this inside of Slack so you guys get a general idea of whether or not your PC is VR ready. And finally, you're going to need a VR VR headset, either the HTC Vive or Oculus Rift, in order to run your content. Okay. So let's go ahead and introduce some of the real world VR applications right now. Um, well, there are actually many applications going from healthcare, business, sports, education, video games. There are social applications, film, new experiences, and I'll be going over some of the applications out there so you guys get a general idea of um, VR applications out there right now. VR in or this is a healthcare. This is for healthcare and education. This is basically a live stream of a 360 surgical process. Yeah, so they do this for educating people going into the med field. Another one, Next VR. This is an application that allows live 360 streaming of sporting events from soccer to like boxing, etc. YouTube VR. This is to watch 360 videos on YouTube. And Google Earth VR. This is for high immersion. This is basically Google Earth inside of VR. It's pretty incredible if you haven't tried it already. If you have an HTC Vive or Oculus Rift right now, I do recommend you check it out. It's pretty incredible. For video games, very popular one is Beat Saber. This is a VR rhythm game that users can play by slashing blocks through the arrows. It's the through how the arrows are pointed. Outspace VR is a social VR application, and this application allows you to attend like social events online and meet new people, interact with others all around the world. It's pretty cool. You should check this out as well if you're doing high immersion. And okay, we're gonna go over the entire course overview of the two courses. First, the VR Mobile 360, and then we're going to be covering the VR High Immersion course afterwards. So for those of you in VR Mobile 360, this is how the projects are going to be formatted. First, we are going to go through the two projects in front, which are going to focus on VR mobile design. First, Puzzler, which should take an estimated approximately like 20 days. The second project will be Tic-Tac-Toe, which will focus on code optimization and project optimization. So Puzzler is mainly focused on the design of VR applications, while Tic-Tac-Toe is more on the performance and optimization aspects. So after you finish those, which should take about 40 days, so a little over a month, you guys will be going into 360 media production. And you have two projects here. First is the protagonist's journey, which should take about 21 days. And the second one is the storyteller's revenge. And these two projects are going to be like the main content at which you're able to learn 360 media production for the course. And finally, you have the final two projects here for career and capstone. The first one is the project to improve your LinkedIn profile, which is pretty quick. It just takes 2 days. And you have someone like a reviewer review your LinkedIn profile and optimize it for your career. And the capstone project, which is like your final project at the end of the Nanodegree. And this can take, well, here it says 24 days, but depending on your scale of your capstone project, it can take much longer. It all depends on what you want to make. Like for my capstone took like about 1.5 months. So again, it should depend on what you're trying to create. And I recommend that you schedule on your own time. And these dates are not always accurate. Right. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the VR High Immersion course content. All right, so at the start, we have VR mobile design, which is for the Google Cardboard again. It's going to be the same project, Puzzler, which is going to take around 20 days to finish. And if you notice, there's actually fewer projects in the VR high immersion, and this is because the projects here tend to take much longer. For instance, if we look at the high immersion VR development section, we have the two projects, the Rube Goldberg game. This is actually one of my favorite projects. It's a really fun project. And the other one is Performance Bounce Back, which should take 20 days. And then once again, you have Improve Your LinkedIn Profile project, as well as the VR Mobile. Put that wrong. It should say VR High Immersion Capstone. And generally, the capstone for the VR High Immersion takes longer than Mobile 360 due to the requirements and the rubric. Okay. It's a pretty fun course. I think you all should will enjoy it a lot. All right, let's go over deadlines. So the project deadlines, as you see inside of the Udacity classroom, those are generally used as guidance, meaning that the project deadlines displayed there are going to be soft deadlines. And 6 to 19, that's going to be the hard deadline. But you don't want to be submitting all of your projects like on the last day, because you need time for the reviewer to review your project and give you back feedback. So you want to leave at least 2 weeks of room before you hit that hard deadline and make sure you can to graduate. And the key here, of course, is time management. Just make sure you're managing your time correctly. Make sure you have like a plan on how you want to approach these projects. And again, I'll be personalizing each of these with you. So you guys should have a set schedule on how you want to do this. All right. Technical help. Well, when you have an issue when you're trying to troubleshoot for one of your projects, the first thing you should probably do is to look online for answers, for like quick feedback. The second way is through Udacity Knowledge. There's also a student hub inside of Udacity. And the final one is a Slack channel. So I'm going to be showing you what I mean by Udacity Knowledge. It's like here. So if you look here, if you click inside of the classroom, there's a button that says Knowledge. Click on that, which opens up this. And here you can basically search for whether or not your question has already been answered in the past. And if not, you can post your answer and then wait for like a response. So let's say I have like a question about submitting project. And here is going to be like the questions in the past regarding what you just searched up. And to post, all you do is just click that and you can post a question here. So it's pretty simple to use. This might be something you might want to use during the Nanodegree if you have any questions. The other one is Student Hub, which you can interact with other students taking the course and yeah, get answers to your questions. And the final way, of course, is through the Slack channel. So if you message me inside of Slack, if you give me a private message, generally I should be able to respond within 12 hours. That is most of your questions. And yeah, if you couldn't find any answers to any of these above, then yeah, by all means, you can use Slack to message me and find answers to your questions. All right, I'm going to give you some of my personal insights and tips through my experience taking the Nanodegree. All right, so when you submit a project, it's actually quite likely that it's not going to be your last, and you're going to get like some kind of a review. But make sure not to get discouraged by these reviews, because these reviews are here to allow you to learn and learn from the material. These reviews are constructive. Make sure, yeah, again, don't get discouraged by these. And almost all Udacity students go through like having reviews. Another tip I would give is to check the projects early on, even before you start watching like the video content. So you can check the rubric and get like an overview of what the project is asking for. And then once again, before you submit your project, I do recommend that you check the rubric again because that's what the reviews are going to be based on. So if you do check the rubric, you can double check on what you have and don't have, and then make sure you have everything ready. Okay. And the third one is to know the scope of your own project. And this is a pretty big one, at least for me, because sometimes when you're creating, like developing your own project, you sometimes want to make it like large scale. You want to make it like a really big project. But the thing here to know is that there is a time constraint, so you can't have it too big. Yeah, make sure you know how big each of the projects inside the Nanodegree are going to be before you start. It's important to plan out like um, how long you plan to spend on these projects, and I think that will help you manage your time well inside of the Nanodegree. And if you get stuck, you can actually use the Udacity's project examples on GitHub, which provide some examples that you can follow off of for your projects. So yeah, those are my personal tips. Let me know if those are helpful later on. Let's see. And okay. So in order to succeed in this Nanodegree course, it's important to stay motivated and engaged. There are two primary factors of motivation. The first one is to have confidence in your material. And throughout the Nanodegree, I'll be ensuring and helping you have confidence in the material that you're learning. The second one, your goal or your reason for taking the course, that's completely dependent upon you. So you need to have your own goal when you're approaching the material, and you need to remind yourself what the goal is throughout the whole course. And I believe that's going to help you stay engaged and motivated. Don't be afraid to struggle, make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah, so don't be afraid to struggle. Like that's the whole point of taking the Nanodegree. And yeah, also don't be afraid to reach out too. Um, also keep a positive and open mind. And yeah, make sure to manage your time effectively. And the final one is to make sure to do your own work because that ensures that you're putting in the effort necessary for your creating your project. And yeah, that ensures like all project submissions are fair and shows your effort as well. And here's a fun fact. You're actually more likely to succeed in the program by spending 5 hours inside of the classroom within the first week. So I highly encourage you to delve into the content like this weekend even, and just get started if you haven't already. And I think you guys can even start on your first project, Puzzler. Right, okay. All right, so now I would like you to introduce yourself to the Slack session channel. Include your name, your background, at least one of your hobbies, and what you'd like to achieve personally through this course. So this should be your reason, and your reason only. And the second thing I'd like you guys to do is to schedule a one-on-one with me using my Calendly link. And I'll be linking this inside of Slack as well. And yeah, please do schedule like an appointment with me during this upcoming week. And what we'll be doing is I'll be helping you set up Unity and everything, asking you some questions, getting to know you. And if you're watching this later on, yeah, make sure to go to that link, even if you're watching later on. All right. Do any of you have any questions? You can feel free to post them or ask me directly through Hangouts. Yeah, I believe there's a website online you can check to see whether or not your PC is VR ready. I think I also put that inside of Slack as well, so you guys can check that. Um, if you do have any further questions, I think you can post them inside of Slack for me to see, and I should get to you right away. Right now, I guess I'll just wait. If any of you guys have any more questions. All right, well, great. Again, don't hesitate to ask me any questions through Slack. I'll be available this weekend if you'd like to ask me any questions. Um, and yeah, make sure to schedule that one-on-one so I can talk to you and get to know you better. Well, thanks for watching. I'm gonna